If your aim really is to develop the country, then this is an option for you. And you get to just go to school for free and you get some money. Yes, so I'm encouraging other persons to apply for Fulbright.
How many persons have benefited from the Fulbright scholarship from Jamaica this year?
So this year we have 4 Fulbright scholars that will be attending school in the United States as part of this Fulbright graduate student program, as well as a program for folks who will be professors and teachers as well.
How have Jamaicans benefited from the Fulbright scholarship program over the years?
Well, it's been a great benefit, I think, to Jamaica and the United States. So the Fulbright program is the State Department's and the United States government's flagship educational exchange program. So it's not just Jamaica. There's actually 160 different countries around the world that send students to study in the United States with the hopes that they will come back to their countries and do great things, be leaders. And of course, there are folks from the United States that also come here. So currently, right now, we have several American students that are here at UE and other places studying and being part of that exchange. So again, for Jamaicans, it's fabulous because we send these students out there. They get, they get their studies paid for. They get to do something of their choice, a field of their choice. And then the idea is, we're looking for leaders. We're looking for people who are going to come back to Jamaica and with that knowledge, with that field of study, do great things here.
Tell me about your academic and career journey thus far.
Okay, so I went to the University of the West Indies. I went to Karamak and I did the BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts in Film Production. Before that, I did a few short courses in media. So the last short course I did was in voice and speech and video production. And I think that course I did just before I went to TV really solidified my interest in film and specifically in post-production. So then I went to UE. I pursued my Bachelor in Fine Arts in Film Production, graduated with a first class honors after lots of hard work and late nights, but I got through and here I am right now.
Why are you so passionate about film?
Okay, so initially I was a visual artist, so things like drawing and painting and sculpting. But in terms of film is another means of me to do visual arts. It's like I could create my own world in another way. So, and especially with like post-production, because I always like to say, when visual arts you have the paints and the pens and the canvas. Our version of that in film, in editing, are the clips and the timeline. It's basically the same way of creating things and building your own world and making art.
So I would have begun my academic journey, tertiary academic journey at the University of the West Indies, where I pursued a bachelor's degree in political science and then a master's degree in government. And I think largely that is what pushed me into political communication, because it wasn't that apparent to me at the time. But then when I began to do my research paper to complete my master's degree and trying to figure out what it is I want to do and where my interest would lie, I remembered that, communication. I was always a big fan of communication. And so the thought was to bridge the two together, and then political communication jumped out at me. And so I did my research paper in that particular area, focusing on social media and how it can boost political communication. And here we are today.
How critical is political communication in Jamaica?
So for me, it is an interesting thing, because what I want to focus on particularly is third-party development. And I fear that a large subset of our Jamaicans have to focus primarily on the two major political parties, or they're reliant on the two major political parties for any form of communication, any form of information that they want to develop their own traits or their own tactics. And so for me, there is no space to learn communication for anyone outside of the two major political parties. And so that's the gap I want to fill at this time, to introduce the avenues for people to learn communication if they want to develop a third party, or they are just a candidate who wants to vie for a particular post outside of the two major political parties. That's the gap I want to close. There isn't a space to learn communication, but first I have to educate myself.
I did my undergraduate in media and communications at the Caribbean School. Now it was Institute back in the day of Media and Communications, Karamak. I then did a master's in development studies at Salisis, which is also at UWI.
And you are a program director at UTEC.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So I am the program director of the Bachelor of Arts in Communication, Arts and Technology at the University of Technology, Jamaica. And basically I manage or run the program. So I manage the students, their academic journey, staff, etc.
So my academic journey started in 2011, where I went to University of the West Indies to pursue a Bachelor's of Science in Energy and Environmental Physics. While doing that degree, I got inducted into the Physics Honor Society. And I was fortunate enough to meet Professor Michael Taylor,
Yes.
who introduced me to doing research. You know, as part of the being in the Honor Society, you would normally get like a month's internship with the department, the Climate Studies group, and you would actually do research on their behalf. So that gave me my first introduction into doing research, after which I decided to do a Master's of Philosophy in Applied Physics, where I specialized in energy again, alternative energy. After which, or throughout that period, I would have done numerous internships. I would have done internships in Belize at the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. Would have done an internship also in Barbados at the Caribbean Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology. All of which I think, brought me to the position where I'm at right now.
What sparked your interest in climate studies?
So my interest in climate studies it sparked when I got my first introduction into doing research. We were working on a research project where we're looking at green or turning fish farms or making them more sustainable. So what we did was we looked at how they were trying to produce power to aerate their ponds, and we tried to address it by replacing the fossil fuel sources that they were using with solar panels and wind turbines.
What led you to apply for the Fulbright scholarship?
That's interesting. So I have a few colleagues, one of whom was a Fulbright a few years ago, and they were encouraging me to actually apply for quite a few scholarships. But I actually didn't think I would have gotten it, because once you hear Fulbright, kind of sound, like you'd have to be extra bright. So I didn't actually think I would get it, so I didn't. I delayed it, and then COVID happened, and I said, you know what, let me just apply, because I wanted to do a PhD in an academic setting like the University of Technology, Jamaica. You have to, in order to advance, you would need to continue to improve yourself. So a PhD helps you to move forward. So I wanted to do it, but funds, the options available here, and I actually applied to the University of the West Indies as well and got accepted into 3 programs for MPhil. But the challenge is actually what I actually want to research. Challenge is I got into the PhD for communication, the PhD for culture, and the PhD for policy, public policy, which is 3 separate PhDs. What I actually wanted to research is something that would combine all 3, but that's not available locally. So going to the US was an option.
And what's your take on the merger of those 3 disciplines?
I actually think that's something that is crucial. Canada does it, the US does it as well, because there is a lot of intersect as it relates to those 3 disciplines. Simple example, what Julie Mango is doing now, or Road Marshall. So the TikToks, the things that are showing our culture, utilizing new and emerging media, but then what governs it? They're just putting things out there. How do they know to protect what they have created? Is it theirs? We've seen issues with like Black TikTok and so on. So it's those sort of things, how the policies are separate, the disciplines are separate, but there are actually so many areas of intersect, and the COVID in particular, where persons are putting a lot more content online, a lot more of what we consider a cultural good. So not just what we consider as being Jamaican, but the thing that can become an earner or a source of income. When you put those things out, there's nothing really that governs or manages that.
The Fulbright scholarship, to me, it's a way for me to advance my career, propel my career, because doing so many internships across the region, you do realize that the issues that we face are climate related. It's not something that is endemic to Jamaica. Belize, Barbados, Trinidad, we all face the same issues. So being at CIMH, I would have worked on specific projects that were climate related or that would help to mitigate climate change. or the effects that we face. And what I did realize was that in some ways I lacked certain knowledge. And being the person that I am, I like to learn things. I like to read. I read a lot. You know, I realized that, you know, I needed to know more. So for me, the Fulbright scholarship provided an avenue where I could actually go and do a PhD, learn more, and become more of an expert in my field.
This was a few years in the making. I think it was in my second year at UE. I remember the head of Karamak, Dr. White, and the head of the film program, Rayan Smith, they were talking to a few students, and they had mentioned that they were Fulbright scholars because they were talking to us about options of expanding our horizons and furthering our education if we chose to do so. And they spoke about, you know, the benefits of the Fulbright program and what it was about and how it could help you further contribute to whatever country you came from. And then over the years, even while I was working, people would mention to me, you know, you should try for the Fulbright program, especially if you want to, you know, further your education and your knowledge and be able to make a greater impact in Jamaica, especially since our film industry is it's still in its infancy, but it's growing. So it would be good to be able to have an opportunity to go somewhere where you can go where the film industry is already booming, they're already ahead of the curve, and learn some of those skills and techniques and bring it back right here.
So I have a great deal of lecturers back at the University of the West Indies who have been a part of it, and I even have friends who are on the program now. And they said, Stephen, this is certainly something that you should take up. For me, I heard Fulbright and I said, well, that's for bright people. And I really belittled myself in that way. But then along my journey, I did some things and I realized, wait, this is certainly something I could really do. This is something I could look into. I made the application and to my surprise, I was called. So.
What was your reaction on the day that you learned you were a scholar?
I was more elated because I was home. I'm from Westmoreland, by the way. And I would have gone back to Westmoreland after just completing some time at the University of the West Indies. And I said to myself, what next? And this proved to be a useful what next, you know, moving directly into your PhD pursuits. Because I think that's important, you know, not to put down the ball for too long, especially when you want to get something going.
I was elated. I was excited. You know, I would have called my parents, my mother, my father, my sister, my girlfriend. You know, I would have spoken to all of them, and you know, I would have told them, you know, I got the scholarship, and you know, we can look forward to the next phase. You know, which was applying for schools and you know, meeting with prospective professors. You know, so it was really good.
What was the application process like?
It was pretty long. I think the hardest part for me was the essays, especially I think it was a statement of purpose. I had to, in that one, I really had to switch how I usually write, because in my academic writing, I was initially trained to be very impersonal in academic writing, but I think for something like this, I think what was best was to just be really honest and show my passion, even if I sounded a little bit, I don't know, too strong, but I felt that that was what I needed to do. So it took me a while to be able to form my thoughts that were swirling in my head and make them into a few coherent essays, but I think that was the most difficult part. But I did, luckily I had some help with people who are much better with teaching people how to streamline their thoughts into a way that people can understand.
And what was your reaction when you learned that you were a 2022 scholar?
I was completely surprised. I mean, you hope for the best, but it seemed almost surreal. But I was just really grateful that someone had read what I wrote and saw the same value in what I wanted to learn. So I really appreciated that. So I was very happy that you know, someone picked out a film kit, because we don't get picked all the time. So I was appreciative and grateful.
I don't think I've reacted as yet. So the Fulbright process is a year-long process, and let me tell you, you go through various stages. So you're shortlisted and you interview, then you're selected, and you keep going through stages. But the day I think you would mean is when I got the congratulations, first congratulations. And after that interview, I actually didn't think I got it again. So when I did the interview, I didn't think I did very well in the interview, but I'm just hard on myself. So I didn't think I did very well in the interview. So I was, you know, how you play things over in your mind. And then when I saw that email, I was like, okay. So that was it. But because it's such a process, everything else is another step and another step. Then it's like now that you actually feel like you're going right. But during it is just another process and another part of the stage, and you just keep moving through stages.
Can you tell me how many Jamaicans applied for the Fulbright scholarship this year?
There was dozens of people who applied for the program. The process is fairly straightforward. Once folks apply, we are actually making the selections here at the embassy. There's a long interview process. And then back in the States, they also look and say, okay, these people look like everything will work out. And then once they're selected, we actually work with them to find, hey, which schools are going to be good for your programs. There's a really good program at Florida State. There's a really good program at Illinois. There's a great one in Washington and a great one in Missouri. And so we work with them to match them up with those schools. Applications are always a lot of them coming through. So again, this past year, we normally send about 2 or 3 folks. This year we have 4 that are going. We're very, very happy about that. But it's always in high demand. Again, the program is really a unique program in terms of being able to get them to go, again, tuition paid for, stipend, and then once they come back, they're part of an alumni program. So all the folks that we've sent throughout the years, they come back here and they can share their experiences, and again, we hope that they go and do great things.
Which university will you be attending, and what program of study will you be undertaking?
All right, I will be going to Florida State University, and I will be doing the Master of Fine Arts in Production.
How do you hope to contribute to Jamaica's film industry on your return?
I hope to contribute, especially more specifically in the space of post-production. There aren't a lot of editors out here. You know, we have a lot of DPs and people who work on sets, and they're very active in the industry, both locally and abroad. But not always the same for the editors. And a lot of the time, a lot of editors out here, they double as DPs and editors. They're hardly someone who's just an editor, or just an editor and colorist, or just an editor and a video editor and a sound editor. So to be able to go somewhere where I could have the facilities to really and truly fully explore editing, which is a discipline unto itself. It's not as simple as cutting clips together. You're telling a story. You're essentially teaching people or showing people how they need to think or how they need to perceive a story. And that's a skill in and of itself. Yes, it's creative, but it's also extremely technical. And unfortunately out here, there are a few people who do have some of those technical skills, but definitely not enough. And those people, they learned from years of experience, So it's good to be able to go to a place where it's all right there, and I can basically get everything, all of their skills, all of their knowledge, and all of their little tricks, and bring it back here and kind of help to make our films look just that much better. Because you can always have a great DP, but if you don't put it together properly, then what's the point of the story?
My goal for renewable energy technologies is after completing my studies, I would love to return here to Jamaica to develop what we call a big data research facility, where we look at the issues faced by the renewable energy industry. Because the renewable energy industry, we're trying to make the transition now in Jamaica from fossil fuels to renewables. However, we do realize that there are some issues or there are some hindrances to that transition. So I would like to look at those problems, come back here, look at those problems, and try to provide solutions to those problems so we can make that transition, whether it be quicker, or whether it be safer, just help to make that transition easier.
Tell me a little bit about the research you're undertaking at this time.
So at the University of Illinois in Chicago, I am doing a PhD in communication, but I'm looking at new media technology, culture, and communication, and seeing how those intersect. So what I want to look at is, as I described earlier, how is it that we operate, especially as small states who have, let's call it big cultures, how is it that we operate in spaces that are online or spaces that we don't necessarily own? So one of the things that prompted this, I think I saw a tweet that someone was saying that we needed a reggae museum in Jamaica. And then someone else replied and said, have you considered VR? So we keep thinking that in order to put the culture to a certain space, we need to link it to, let's say, tourism, where we build a thing and people come. But we're now in an age where technology is so vast, so available, that we could do it online. We could create a virtual space. People could interact with the music. People could be at a stadium, but they're in another country. So that's the sort of intersect. And for me, it's not just looking at the idea, but what policies would cover it. Because right now you have a culture policy, and you have a communication policy, and you have a tech policy, so they're still separate. How would you then manage? And when I say policy, I'm not talking so much about legislation only, but the frameworks to operate, the training, the research that is done, funding in academia, how do you teach persons about copyright and protecting and so on.
What's your vision for the study of political communication at the tertiary level?
Thank you so much. So for me, I want to equip myself with the knowledge, or enough knowledge, so that I can be able to come back and teach people, right? There is no political communication program across the Caribbean. That's something I want to develop and teach if I can, or write, and have other people teach and learn from me. I also want to build an agency responsible for communication in Jamaica, where anyone can learn really, but as I would have indicated, the attention is to persons who don't want to be a part of the major political parties, but they want to focus on, how other forms of communication can come in, or how can I, as a third party, kind of make my way into the entire grand scheme of things without having to go through the two major political parties. So it should be like a safe avenue, or this little space you can come to learn the different forms of communication that can boost your time and your efforts to make Jamaica a better place.
Aside from your studies in the US, is there anything else you're looking forward to on this Fulbright journey?
Yes, traveling. So I actually do plan on traveling the US and experiencing, I guess, the cultural part of it as well. Because when you go on vacation in the US, you tend to go to one state or one area, go and look for your family. So I actually want to do a schedule where I can travel. First on the list, of course, is visiting my other Fulbrighters. I have one that's just one state away, but another one that's completely to the other end of the US as well. So I'm looking forward to traveling.
I've been fortunate enough to travel throughout the US, but surprisingly, this is my first time going to the west coast of the US. So I'm looking forward to seeing that side of the US and what the culture has to offer on that side, because I know that East Coast culture and West Coast culture may be a little bit different. So I'm looking forward to that. Visiting places like California, Oregon. Yeah.
I just think that the Fulbright program is a really great and special program. I'm looking forward to meeting some other Fulbrighters from other parts of the country. Hopefully some others who are like me, who are, art kids who feel really passionate about contributing to the culture of their country, because I think that's such a broad topic, and I think everyone has different ways that they can contribute to culture and that they appreciate their own country's culture. And I think how much you appreciate the culture will depend on how much you work towards adding to it in your own unique way.
I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'd like to thank the Fulbright Commission at the US Embassy in Kingston, and I'd like to say thank you to all the individuals who made this possible. And I'd just like to say to the youngsters out there, nothing has really changed. Education is the way. It may take you some time. I'm here, I'm 30, and I'm still deciding to go back to school. But with that time and that effort put in, there are rewards there.
I want to encourage other persons to apply. I think sometimes when we see Fulbright, for example, even in the name, it's sort of intimidating, but apply, especially persons who are in academia, because LASPO is a scholarship that targets persons who are academics or who work in that sort of an environment. And if your aim really is to develop the country, then this is an option for you. And you get to go to school for free, and you get some money. Yes, so I'm encouraging other persons to apply for Fulbright.
The Fulbright does not limit your brilliance. I would have told you that I thought it was for bright people, but anyone can apply. If you're interested, make that application. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But make the application, try something new, put your ticket in there so that there is the possibility for you to be called. So that's what I did, and I'm here today.
For folks who are thinking of applying next year, please apply. Go to our website, be on the lookout on our social media pages. It's a fantastic opportunity. Again, this is not just about providing an exchange for Jamaicans, but it's also an exchange for Americans as well. So I would just say give it a shot, and we look forward to seeing your applications.